welcome back to 4ER People. My name's Aaliyah, and I have a very special guest with me today, so I'm going to read you something about him. Alright, today we're joined by former U.S. Senator Mark Pryor, who represented Arkansas and Washington from 2003 to 2015. Before that, he served as Arkansas's Attorney General and spent time in the state legislature, carrying on a long family tradition of public service. Over the years, Senator Pryor earned a reputation for working across the aisle, focusing on issues that matter most to everyday Arkansans, from agriculture and education to consumer protection and rural development. We're excited to have him here to talk about where Arkansas politics has been, where it's going, and what it'll take to bridge some of the divides we see today. So, with that, welcome to 4ER People.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Well, I have some questions for you, as I'm sure you know.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I am excited to have you, though. So,
thank you.
First, we're going to talk about Arkansas politics back in the day, if that's all right.
Sure.
So, my first question would be, what was Arkansas politics like when you first got started?
Wow. So, let me frame this, because when I first got started, like for me, that's when I was born, because my dad was in politics my whole life. But by the time I actually ran for office and actually was involved and was on the ballot myself and all that, I started in 1990. I was elected to the State House of Representatives from Little Rock. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't realize it at the time, but we were spoiled back then. We had great elected officials, top to bottom, all over the state. It was mostly Democratic back then, but really, the thing I loved about being in the legislature was that I felt like people really did represent their communities. You know, I felt like what I was able to see with the 100 in the House and 35 in the state Senate is that that they really was a great cross section of the state. I mean, we had teachers and a few lawyers, not too many, but lawyers and doctors and a lot of business people, farmers, former electeds, like, you know, former county judges, and, you know, just a hodgepodge of everybody. And it was kind of this melting pot, but we got together and we worked hard, and it's like democracy. We didn't always get to the best possible answer, but we got to where we got, and it was good 99% of the time. In fact, I just recently bumped into a friend of mine named Jack Critcher that I served with, and Jack was a state house member and then state senator from Jackson County. And he and I were at the car shop the other day, and we were getting our cars fixed. But anyway, it was great to catch up with him. But we were talking about how when we were in the legislature, the last thing we thought about was partisanship. It just never occurred to us that this guy's a Democrat, that guy's a Republican. We really just focused on issues. And it was so great. And again, I felt like I was spoiled because I didn't realize, look, when I was later elected state attorney general, and I kind of took that attitude in with me to the state AG's office. And I remember I was in office for a full year, and I was at these AG meetings, and finally I stopped and I said, I don't even know who's a Democrat or Republican in the AG world. I mean, you know, and again, to me that was liberating, because I think what you see right now is you see this hyper-partisanship, and unfortunately, and I'm a Democrat, and I'll be a Democrat till the day I die, but there are people who, and way too many people, that elevate their party affiliation above everything else, and for some people, it's the only thing they think about is, you know, let's put on the red jersey, let's put on the blue jersey, and that's just not the way our system is supposed to work. So I felt like back in the old days, Arkansas politics, we really had great leaders. The state knew that we did. And I think that a lot of this was because I think people like my father's generation, they were committed, and I tried to carry this on, they were committed to representing the best Arkansas had to offer. You know, we wanted to, like when my dad went to Congress and went to the U.S. Senate, he wanted to exemplify the best in Arkansas, you know, the best of the state, and take the best ideas, as Abraham Lincoln may have said, our better angels, to Washington and really project that. You know, it's like you're the ambassador for the state, you know, and you're there and you're talking to people and you're working to find solutions. And that's what
I always try to do. And again, unfortunately, you just don't see nearly as much of that today. And I would argue that you don't see it in Washington, but you really don't see it in Little Rock in the legislature and the state government like you used to, unfortunately.
Mhm. And you mentioned your father, the Honorable David Pryor. Would you say that he was a big reason you got into public service, or what was the reason for that?
He was for sure. He and my mother. That I grew up in a household where there was no separation between politics and public service. It was one and the same thing. And people look back on my dad's career and he was so popular, everybody loved David Pryor. That's true. And he was a very good public servant, but also a very, very gifted politician. I mean, he really was a gifted politician, but he had to make a lot of tough calls. A lot of things he did were not popular at the time. He broke with, he was one of those people, he just didn't take the easy way out when so many other people would have. And I think in retrospect, that made him even more of this kind of warrior in people's minds. He was. I mean, in a lot of, there was a couple of Arkansas, I think one was the Arkansas Gazette cartoon, I think one was Arkansas Democrat cartoon, if I remember right, they're a few years apart, but they showed my dad as like David and Goliath, going after the big, powerful interests, whatever they may have been. It could have been like, at one point in his career, the nursing homes. The nursing homes didn't even want to take care of people really back in this time period. And he made that happen. It was really his thing that made it happen. He took on the IRS with the taxpayers' bill of rights. He took on a lot of, he took unpopular positions. He did things that people from other states very, very seldom do. Like, for example, we had the Pine Bluff Arsenal, and my father led the charge to end nerve gas production. And they made it at the Pine Bluff Arsenal. There were Arkansas jobs on the line, but my dad felt like, this is wrong. And ultimately, there was a treaty to ban, between the Soviet Union and the U.S., to ban nerve gas, and they did decommission it, destroy it all, ultimately. But that was really unpopular when he did it. He would take these stands that were courageous. And I think we need more of that today. I think that it's easy for us to get swept up in popular opinion, especially now with social media and the internet. Mm-hmm. The truth is there's so much false information, and a lot of it is just intentionally false. They're deliberately trying to mislead people. They're deliberately trying to undermine the truths. And he didn't have that in his day. I was starting to see that when I left office 10 years ago. But anyway, we need people to stand up and call it like it is. And I think people generally respond well to that kind of leadership. And I hope we see more of that.
Mm-hmm. I would argue that in your time in office, though, you took some pretty stances that were pretty unpopular, maybe. And so I was curious on what you were most proud of, because I know during your time, it's the ACA and things like that. So what would you say you're most proud of?
Well, I did. I took a lot. Let me two things here. Let's go to first things I'm most proud of. There's a lot of things that I did when I was in the state legislature that I was really proud of, because let's just take that office. I showed up. My dad was in the United States Senate. I mean, he had been governor with half of the people in the legislature. So there was a relationship that I had and he had with these people. And I think there were kind of expectations about me, like I might cruise in and be some. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to come in and just work harder than anybody else. I had a friend of mine, a guy named Lloyd George, who was a state rep with me. He was from Yale County. And Lloyd, I said to Lloyd one day, I'd been in office like 2 days. I went over there and said, all right, Lloyd, give me some advice. What do I need to do? How do I approach this? How can I be successful? And he said, come early and stay late. Mm-hmm. And I always remember that. And that was his great advice. That's what I did. And I just tried to outwork everybody and be more productive and be more on top of things. And I felt like I had to work even harder to earn people's trust and respect, to be there. Because otherwise you think, I'm just riding my dad's coattails, So I kind of took that into the state AG's office too. And I was fortunate in that early in my legal career, I was at Rackins and Jennings, a great law firm in Little Rock. And you know them. I mean, lawyers around the state know Rackins and Jennings is really well-known, respected law firm. I was so fortunate to be there. And, I worked really, really hard at becoming a good lawyer. And then I got in the state legislature during that time. But the point is that I took that experience of being in a big law firm like the Wright firm to the state AG's office. And I tried to run the state attorney general's office like the private sector firm. People talk about, oh, let's, bring, private sector into business. So that works sometimes. But the truth is, the state AG's office, when I walked in the door, they needed to be kind of reorganized and reworked, and we did that, and it was good. And the AG's office became very, very productive. We did so many good things there. One of the things we did, and this is, maybe minor in the grand scheme of things, but it was important to me, and that was when I started as attorney general, we had 58 attorneys. In our office at that moment, we had one black attorney out of 58, one. And so what we did is we said, look, we're not going to have affirmative action or anything like that. But what we are going to do is we want a diverse hiring pool. So for any lawyer position that opens up, we want to have African American or other minority candidates in there. So by the end, we had 13 black attorneys in 4 years, which is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. We added 4 attorneys for the overall office, went to 52. I forgot my numbers. We went to 62. We started 58, we were 62. But we added 4. But still, that was something that I felt like it was the right thing to do. The Attorney General's office ought to look like Arkansas, and the lawyers in the AG's office ought to look like the Arkansas bar, And believe me, there's more than one out of 58 attorneys in the state of Arkansas that are black. So anyway, I felt like that was really good. Plus, not to mention, so many of those people were super successful at the AG's office, and some of them went on to do great things beyond that. So that was great. I always loved that. And then in the Senate, when I was in the U.S. Senate, I really felt like, again, trying to carry on sort of my dad's approach to this, is you're there, you don't get elected to that position just to get reelected. And you get elected to do something. And you get elected to do what's right, even when what's right isn't necessarily popular. And you mentioned the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Mm-hmm. It was immensely unpopular. Now, I would argue that the reason it was so unpopular is because the other side flooded the airwaves, flooded the internet, flooded everything you can imagine with disinformation, misinformation about, totally mischaracterized it, completely, absolutely untrue, most things they said about it. But I also believe that had most people in this state spent as much time as I'd spent on it, had access to information that I had, that, was tracking down questions and trying to get answers on different things, I think most people would have voted the way I voted. And the beauty of the way I voted was when we passed that in Arkansas, in the state legislature, with Mike Beebe as governor and a Republican majority in the legislature of Alabama. But everything in the line, but they passed it and they implemented it in the state of Arkansas. 400,000 people got health care in this state. They never had it before. They never had it. Mm-hmm. And now, unfortunately, we see a lot of them are in the process of losing.
Yes.
And this is another thing I know we'll talk about at some point, but I hate that. And it's not because I voted for it. I have a pride of authorship. I promise you, the day that bill passed and was signed into law, I knew it wasn't perfect. I knew we needed to come back in and work on it. And we just never did. And I left the Senate, and it's been such a political football ever since. It's just hard to do anything constructive when you're at each other's throats all the time. And plus, when you're also mischaracterizing what's actually in the legislation. It's actually So
Right.
anyway, that's really hard, and that's been disappointing. But I was not afraid to step out there and do what I felt like was right. And then the day I cast that vote, I felt like this could cost me my reelection. But again, you don't serve in these offices to get reelected. You get in there to do, and I felt good. I helped 400,000 people, and our healthcare system today is still broken. It is, and there were a lot of things in the Affordable Care Act that we just couldn't get to because of the partisanship and the gamesmanship that happened. And there were just a lot of people in Washington at that time that didn't want to fix it. They wanted the issue as a political issue. We see that in recent years with immigration. When I was in the Senate, we had a bipartisan bill in the Senate on immigration reform. And it was about border security, but it was about a lot of things. It was a good, comprehensive reform. And it was on the Republican side. It was led by Marco Rubio, who's now Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
Democratic side, it was led by Dick Durbin. And, I remember walking in the elevator the day they announced it. I didn't work on it at all. I barely even knew these negotiations going on because that had just never been my issue. But anyway, I'm looking at the TV and I see on CNN and other things that Rubio and Durbin and all these people, they're on the air, they're talking about it, they're excited about it. It just so happened that when I got on the elevator that day to go to the first vote in the Senate chamber, there was Marco Rubio. I said, Marco, let me just say I'm proud of you for working on this. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I've not read your bill. I don't know anything that's in it. But if you and your 3 Republican colleagues can get together with those 4 Democratic colleagues, because it's pretty conservative guys over here, pretty liberal guys over here, if y'all can work it out, if y'all can agree on this, I'm going to vote for it. Because I hadn't even read it. But I promise you right now on this elevator, I'm going to vote for it. And I may vote for some amendments. And I did. But I'm going to vote for this bill. And I did. And the Senate passed it. Senate passed it. Bipartisan. And this is back in 10 or 11, somewhere in there. I forgot where it was. Maybe 12, probably 11. And anyway, it goes over to the House. They won't even bring it out of committee. The Republicans won't even bring it out of committee. Won't even give it a chance. Go on. Wouldn't do it. And then you saw that same thing happen last year when they were working again on a bipartisan bill. Senator Langford of Oklahoma, very conservative senator, led the charge, bipartisan. They got a deal, and it was coming down to the finish line. They were going to get it done, and then candidate Trump said, "We don't want that." Mm-hmm. I mean, he literally killed it just by saying that. And that is so terrible because we had a chance to really address immigration. And it's kind of the difference of whether you want to provide a solution or just continue with this never-ending political issue that you could just bash people with. Yeah. And it's kind of hard, in my mind, to bash someone when you're the one who's been responsible for killing it twice. But anyway, regardless of that, that's the political war we're in. And back to your earlier question, that's what we didn't have in Arkansas when I was coming up in politics. We didn't have that kind of gamesmanship, that partisan, just hyper gamesmanship, and it was so great. I was so spoiled back then. We got so many good things done.
Mm-hmm. It just really seems like the tone of politics has changed too, just like the attitudes towards it and attitudes towards each other who disagree with us.
No doubt about it. It's interesting if you think about that. What I would say on that is that yes, it has changed. There's a lot of change in politics, and the tone has changed a lot. All these other things, but people want to blame politics for that. Mm-hmm. In fairness, who elects those people? It's us. It's we the people.
We the people.
We the people elect them, and then sometimes to our shame, we re-elect them.
Indeed.
In other words, we reward their bad behavior. And the reason politics is so divided today is because society is so divided today. Look, in this country right now, people are mad at each other, and I don't like it, but it's true. I mean, people are mad at Target and Cracker Barrel for crying out loud. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's mad, there's angry. Mm-hmm. And they're angry at each other for all kinds of reasons, and they're angry for no reason at home.
Mhm.
And that is kind of discouraging. But it doesn't start with politics and the government. It starts right here in the human heart. That's where the change needs to be. It needs to be right here inside of all of us.
Mhm.
And we need to acknowledge that we're not always right, that we don't have all the answers, that this guy I may disagree with actually is making some fair points. Let's hear him out. Let's kind of find the common ground. Let's work on this, work through this together. And that's really how it ought to work. And anyway, I would say that the bigger challenge today is society, and certainly politics is part of the problem. Big time. But anyway.
I completely agree. So, what would you say are some major issues facing Arkansas right now?
You know, I keep going back to education.
Mm-hmm.
I really worry about the Burns Act and what that's done to public education. Public education is so maligned. It's not just here in Arkansas, it's all over the country. People blame our schools for everything because what happens is the public schools inherit all of society's problems. So you see these, broken homes or whatever, and you see this, poverty, you see all this stuff. It's all in the public schools. It's not that the schools want that or created that, but we need a really, really good public school system because education is the way out for so many people. It's the chance that people. It's the great equalizer in capitalism, and it's the great equalizer in a democracy. You can go and make something of yourself, and that opportunity is just not available in most countries. So, and that's a big cornerstone of that is a great public school system. I worry about large. I think it's going the opposite direction. But, the legislature, the governor passed it. That's where we are today. But I do worry about that. I think that is one of the big challenges facing the state of Arkansas.
We're also running out of money for it.
Yeah,
Where's that money going to come from?
The whole thing, I think, is flawed. I think the financials just don't work on it. And I hope that's not by design, but I think that's just where we are. So I would love to revisit that at some point. But really, what I would love to see, I had a guy one time. This is back when I was Attorney General. I used to go to all these dinners, all these community things, all this kind of stuff. And there was a night when somebody, I think he was with one of the chambers of commerce. I don't remember exactly where we were, but I was sitting next to him at the kind of that table, and we were talking, and there were people, speaker after speaker was up there praising him, talking about all his great career he had, all these great things he did. It's all true. But he turned to me quietly, and he said, I wonder, when I look back at my career, he'd been doing like economic development and all that for like 40 years. He said, I wonder if I look back at my career, if we don't put that much energy into education, would we be in the same spot today that we are with all the jobs? And it's almost like if you have a really educated population, the jobs come, generally. Now there's some macroeconomics that you have to deal with, but really we should have both. We should have good economics in the state for job creation, but also we should have a good workforce for people. And it's not just factory jobs, it's everything. And it's innovation. And you look at parts of Arkansas, I go to Northwest Arkansas with obviously Walmart, but Tyson and J.B. Hunt, University of Arkansas, all the stuff that's going on up there, all the new companies that are coming out of all that, it's amazing. It's great. And we need that in other parts of the state. One area I love is Jonesboro, that northeast part. I know you went to A-State.
Yes.
I mean, that's a wonderful part of the state. And you get up in that part of the state, and they have all the elements. I remember years ago when my dad was in the Senate, actually, I was just traveling with him one day, and we went up to Jonesboro for this big announcement, and they had the chamber there in Craighead County or Jonesboro region, whatever they called it back then. They had hired a consultant to look at the demographics and they wanted to be like the next Silicon Valley. They were ready. They had a university. They had all this. And the guy came back and he said, "This is what you need to focus on: food." They were kind of disappointed in that, because they wanted something really high tech, really. But the truth is, They listened, they got it, and you see what's happened up there. They've got, Frito-Lay, Anheuser-Busch. I mean, it's just a lineup of like 10 huge companies, and it is ag-related. It's farm and food-related, and it's good. It makes sense for that area. But anyway, we just need to be smart about how we do things in Arkansas. And I do think that the economic challenges we have they're not unique to our state, but we see it all over the country. But the economic challenges we have in this global economy we live in, that's a challenge. But I'll tell you another, there's a trend all over the U.S., it's probably all over the world, maybe, I don't know, but certainly all over the U.S., is young people, when they go off to college, they don't come back to rural Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's true in Iowa, that's true in Mississippi and Colorado, wherever you are, it's true. They don't come back to the rural areas, and that's hard because most people in Arkansas, they're from a small town. They may live not in a small town anymore, like they may live out of state or may live in Little Rock or, Fayetteville or someplace now, but most of them came from small towns. And you want those small town values, you want that future for Arkansas because it's special, it's wonderful, it's amazing. In a small town, Arkansas, small town America, you get that sense of humanity, that sense of belonging and knowing each other and neighbor helping neighbor. But that is just so much more common out in the rural areas than it is in the cities.
I completely agree. I'm from Jonesboro, as you know, so I love it there. But so there's been a lot of talk about Trump's big, beautiful bill. We've talked a little bit about it here, about like the Medicaid cuts, SNAP cuts, but people were talking specifically about farmers. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the bill and its effects on Arkansas?
Well, of course, let me say first, I wasn't there. I don't have a staff anymore to read all that stuff.
It is involved.
Yeah, and I have a concern about that bill that nobody has raised, and it's also concerning to me that no one has raised it, and that is the amount of debt it creates. I saw not long ago that the U.S. government this fiscal year is on track to have a 1 year deficit, of $1.8 trillion in 1 year. It's crazy. It's out of control. And when I see that, the big beautiful bill is part of the problem. So I'm not blaming Trump and the Republicans and saying it's all their fault, because it's not. But a lot of it, some of it is. They have a House, the Senate, and the White House right now. We do, and there are no fiscal restraints. We are spinning ourselves into oblivion, and our debt and deficit is at a crisis level, and it's just going faster and faster and getting worse and worse every year. So that really concerns me. Nobody talks about it, and that right there concerns me. People, Democrats and Republicans all over the country ought to be ringing alarm bells. We can't, this is not sustainable. We need to cut this back. And the reason they don't want to do it is because fixing it is no fun. You're going to have to raise taxes and you're going to have to cut spending, and both things. And nobody wants to do either one of those things. They want, and that's what's happened. Big beautiful bill. You cut taxes, but you increase spending. And anyway, no wonder we're in the shape we're in. But anyway, a lot of the policy in the big beautiful bill I don't love. I worry about our farmers.
Okay.
Obviously for Arkansas's economy, because it really is an industry that it underpins so much of the rest of Arkansas's economy. Mm-hmm. I mentioned those places in Jonesboro. In Little Rock, they've got the Skippy peanut butter factory. Whatever. But those are food and fiber type businesses, companies, and they need a good domestic supply. Not to mention, we need a good domestic supply of food for our national security reasons. We know it's when it's grown here and processed here, we know it's up to our standards. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we do not need to get in the food and import business from all these other countries. So I worry about that. I worry about the individual farmers who are just barely making it right now. I've talked to friends of mine in farming for the last few years, and it's just been increasingly difficult. And these tariffs, I think, the big beautiful bill is one thing, but the tariffs, I think, really hurt our farmers. Mm-hmm. And they want to bail out. I don't know. I think that, I guess Congress will probably do that. I don't know, but it's tough for farmers right now. And you have some, interestingly enough, you would think with farming not as profitable and all that, you would think land would be a lot cheaper, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Land's more expensive. And one reason it is more expensive is you have so many institutional buyers, these huge, it could be hedge funds, they could be, someone told me the Mormon church. I don't know. A lot of these big institutions that have lots and lots of money, they're buying up land all over the country. I mean, I'm glad it's U.S. owned. It's not foreign owned, but still, they're driving the price up, and the producers, the farmers who are really farming the land, they're like being cut out. It's a problem, and we need to really focus on that one. And I wish we had a good solution.
Because Arkansas, I believe agriculture is one of our biggest industries.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting about agriculture. In most states, agriculture is either the largest industry or maybe the second largest. You go to a place like California, you think, oh, it's Hollywood, Silicon Valley. I think agriculture is the second largest industry. I think it is in California. It's that way in New York too. You don't think about it, but in so many of these, even Illinois with Chicago, everybody thinks about Chicago, but downstate Illinois, it's farming, it's agriculture, and it's that way all over the country. If you look on a map, there's a lot more open spaces in this country where you can actually farm. Some of that is raise chickens or raise other livestock, but a lot of it is row crop farming, or it could be fruits and vegetables, all kinds of things. But anyway, we're a very productive nation. We need to keep it that way, but we need to get our economics right.
Completely agree. We talked about the Affordable Care Act earlier, and so my next question kind of has to do with that. So, as you know, the government is shut down. As of us recording this, the government is shut down. And I know you experienced a shutdown in 2013, right?
Yeah.
But the current shutdown is partly because the Democrats really want to expand those subsidies from the ACA. So can you explain a little bit about how a government shutdown happens and how that affects everybody, especially Arkansas?
I would say this: to have a government shutdown, generally speaking, a lot of things have to go wrong. And you can bet your bottom dollar every single time there's a shutdown. This goes back to the 1990s. It's the Republicans that want to shut down. Don't know why they think this is a good idea, but this is what they've done. And I think on this one, I think that when they won the White House and the House and the Senate, I think they kind of knew this day was coming. They came and said, we're not going to compromise. We're not going to give the Democrats anything. Mm-hmm. And we're going to shut the government down, and we're going to force Democrats to cave in. Now, I guess the jury's still out. The Democrats could cave in. They may. I don't know. But my guess is they probably won't. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens here in the end, and I'm not a political prognosticator, but I think what happens in the end is people look at our situation. They say, let's see, who's in the White House? Okay. Who's running the House? Who's running the Senate? That's all Republicans. Mm-hmm. There was something wrong. They're not governing. And I think at the end of the day, politically speaking, the Democrats probably come out ahead, but nobody should want this. And nobody, to me, it's a failure of leadership. And I want to say that, I'll put Democrats in there for being partly responsible for this. And I don't know what happened. I'm not in the room anymore. I don't have a chance to sit there and hear what people are talking about. I don't know if there was genuine efforts on the Democrats to work this out. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there was genuine efforts on the Republican side to work out. I'm not sure, but outside looking in, it looks like the Republicans did not want to have any compromise with the Democrats. Now, the good news is, as we're recording this, it could all change tomorrow, but the good news is that there's now a group of bipartisan senators that are finally talking and trying to work through it. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to see what they come up with. My guess is, since the Republicans are in control of the White House, the House, and Senate, the Democrats are going to have to give up quite a bit. They're not going to get everything they want. They need to know that. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to give up quite a bit. But if they want to get the country back on track and get the country, get the government moving again. Both sides are going to have to give something. And we'll just see where that leads up. But I love the fact that you have a group of bipartisan senators trying to do that. I used to do that kind of stuff all the time. I used to do it all the time. And let me tell you, sometimes it's hard to be in the middle, because you get shot at from both sides. And you get out on that limb, there's a lot of people trying to saw it off behind you. But I'm glad, to me, that's the kind of leadership we need, is that bipartisan leadership, really putting the political differences aside, and let's govern. Let's govern. Let's just forget all this. Who cares about the next election? Who cares about this? That stuff is everybody's so tired of that stuff. Let's just focus on governing, running the country the way it ought to be run, and hopefully we get back on track. But I say all that right now, I don't really see that happening for a while. Because I don't think the leadership of, I don't think the White House, I don't think the leadership of the two houses, the two Republican leaders, want that at all. And I don't really know yet, until this bipartisan group comes out with a finished product, if the Democratic leaders want it. I don't know yet. My guess is that nobody will be happy with it, and that probably means that's exactly what we ought to do. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. But I am glad that we finally have a bipartisan group of senators talk with it.
Yes. Well, just a side question: Are you friends with President Barack Obama? Like, do y'all talk?
We don't talk. I haven't talked to him almost since he's been out of office. Seems like I've run into him a couple of times. He and I served together for 4 years in the Senate, and then he was president for 6 years while he's out of the Senate. I was closer to Biden. Biden was much more of a creature of the Senate than Obama was. It was interesting. I happened to be there and presiding when Biden gave his farewell address, as a senator, which was really nice. I don't think I was there for Obama's. I was there for Hillary Clinton's. And I say there, I mean I was presiding and chair, which was nice. But anyway, I do like Barack Obama. I think they call him no drama Obama. I think a lot of people would take that right now.
He's a funny guy too.
He's a funny guy, super smart, as we know. And you know what? He actually had a productive presidency, in spite of everything else, where they just bashed him all the time. And he got a lot of things done. He really did. And there's a series of, I think it's on CNN, if I'm not mistaken, about presidents. Mm-hmm. It's essentially to go back and look at these presidents. Maybe presidents like the one of them I saw was President Nixon. We all know one thing about President Nixon, and that is Watergate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But the truth is, when you look at his presidency, gosh, he was a very productive president. I mean, he really blew it with Watergate. He had a chance to really go down in history as a very strong president. Now, not that everybody always liked him all the time and all that kind of stuff, but there's scenes of Nixon standing up in the White House, having all the press around him, almost like it's in the round, almost, or maybe a semicircle around him. He's standing up with one microphone, no podium, he's taking questions.
Right.
And I mean, it's impressive, because this guy's asking about Vietnam, this guy's asking about civil rights, so-and-so's asking about some court decision, somebody else is asking about something that's going on in Europe. I mean, it's like boom, boom, rapid fire, and he's handling it. It's impressive. Anyway, it gives you an appreciation. And I think people, when they look back on Obama, they'll have once the emotion fades, for the people who don't like him, I think they'll look at him and go, he actually was a pretty good president. And he was. And I think by objective standards, he'll go down as a good president.
Also, it's like every president has their controversy. They're not without it.
No, I know. And, you can, if you want to study leadership, one of the great places to go is to look at American presidents, because there's some really amazing leaders, and there's some that aren't so great. There's some that had lots of problems, some that were just amazing. But even even the greatest presidents we had, and we've got a few, probably 5 or so that are considered great presidents, all of them had problems. All of them were complicated. All of them had things in their background. George Washington, who I think should be admired, he was a slave owner. Mm-hmm. And there's every evidence in the world that he didn't try very hard at the Constitutional Convention to get rid of slavery, you know. But at the same time, his heart was in the right place for this country. And I think he did feel like that slavery would get dealt with at some point, but they just couldn't do it. It's rich too far at that home. Anyway, regardless of that, all of our presidents have their controversies. They're all human beings. They all fall short. But I will say this: what I don't like in today's politics is that the campaign never stops. Like, you lose the race, the other side just goes in hard for the next 4 years against the president. I don't like that. I don't think that's productive. I don't think that's constructive. I tell you who loves it is China and Russia. They love to see us tear each other apart. Because, see, they're making the argument around the world that democracy doesn't work. And this is evidence. You see us fighting. You see the government shut down right now. They're loving it. They couldn't be happier about it. Because what they're doing is they're going around saying America doesn't work. Don't be a partner with them. Be a partner with us.
That makes sense.
And we need to think about that. We need to be aware that everything we do is watched very, very closely around the world. And that's another reason why America needs to be that city on the hill. We need to be that shining example. We need to be that one. In fact, Woodrow Wilson said one time about the U.S., he said, America is the only idealistic nation in the world. And that's true. I think we're the only idealistic nation in the world. If you don't believe me, just listen to this. One nation.
They play team.
Under God. Indivisible. With liberty and justice for all. And there's no country in the world that aspires to that like we do. Now, we don't hit it every day. We know that. We all fall short. We know that for human beings. But we aspire to it. And that sets us up.
Yeah. Completely agree. Well, I got something fun we could do now.
Right,
I know we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff, but all right, I have a game.
Okay.
I made it just for you.
Yeah, this is making me nervous.
It's called Pryor's Predictions.
Yeah.
So here are the rules.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you some questions about the future of Arkansas.
Yep.
And then you give your predictions.
Okay.
And I got some funny ones in here too.
Okay.
So, all right. So first one, what will Arkansas politics look like in 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more purple than it is now. I hope that what people figure out is that working together is really the magic solution. And whether someone's a Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. It's not just because, a Democrat came up with an idea, it doesn't mean it's a good idea, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Right. So I'm hoping that we see more bipartisanship and more of a purple state where we're working together. I do hope we work on things like education and other issues that we talked about before, because I think we have a lot on our plate that we should be working on.
Awesome. Okay. Will Taylor Swift ever perform in the state of Arkansas again?
I'm going to say yes. It may not be for a few years. She's so big right now. She's so incredibly big right now. I mean, she's bigger than the NFL. She told the NFL no. Nobody ever does that. Everybody's begging to do the halftime show, but she's had just a monster few years. It's unbelievable. And she's been here a few times. In fact, one of our good friends from Fayetteville, grew up in Fayetteville, she saw Taylor Swift when Taylor Swift was in high school. She was going around the state, going around the country, going to these little venues. And so, anyway, you could tell early days she had talent, and obviously everybody knew us a little now.
Do we have a stadium big enough to accommodate this woman?
Well, I mean,
that would be too.
But does anybody have a stadium now? I mean,
that's true.
If you look at how that Eras tour sold out, everywhere, people flying all over the world to go, and all that. And that's another thing. Actually, that's something we could do here in Arkansas. Is we can get the ticket mess straight now. All the reselling and the jacking up of prices and all that stuff. That's something that I think, you would think that legislators and the government could come together on, find a solution.
Right. Well, that leads to my next question. Which policies or issues do you think will surprise people by gaining bipartisan support?
One that surprised me already a little bit is that prison. It's pretty bipartisan opposition to it. You have, it's difficult for some Republicans, but the local community doesn't want it. It's strange how that thing was kind of rolled out, without much. I mean, I think it was Asa. It could have been Mike Beebe. I don't remember, but one of the two previous governors, they were going to build a prison somewhere, and they did like a contest, like a business, like an industry coming to a community, and they got the communities to kind of bid on it, work on it, and come up with a proposal. That was the best proposal for the state, and I thought that was a good idea, because it is steady jobs. It's not very glamorous, of course, prison, and kind of think about that, but in terms of steady jobs and all this, but this was just kind of plopped down on these people without any notice, without any preparation at all. And anyway, it's curious about that. But I do know that Democrats and Republicans over in that part of the world, they really are opposed to it. And it didn't pass the legislature. So that's interesting. We'll see how that works out. And you asked about the biggest issue. That's been one that's been recent. I don't know. I do think that as some of these changes come to healthcare in the state of Arkansas, I think people are really going to be hurt by that, and I think there will be a lot of people that want that addressed. Now, what form that takes exactly, I couldn't tell you, but when I was in the legislature, I was there with Governor Bill Clinton and then Governor Jim Tucker. 2 years of one and 2 years of the other. And both of them, and everybody in the legislature bought into this. Democrats and Republicans bought into this, that we need to fund Medicaid. Because for every dollar we put into Medicaid, there's $3 federal dollars that come in. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about stimulating Arkansas's economy. If we put $1 million in, they put in $3 million. And we're not creating, one set of jobs, we're creating 4 sets of jobs, with all this extra Medicaid money. And I don't know what's happened to that, because that we should be investing in Medicaid. First, our population needs it, but second, it's good economics. So we'll see. I would hope that as some of these healthcare changes take place, people object to that. And by the way, the beauty of our system is we've got a solution, and that is voting. That's what we do every November. Every even number of years we go to the polls and we vote. And if we're not happy, we're not happy with people who cause this government shutdown, vote them out. It's not that hard. Just vote them out. And we may like them, but vote them out. If they're part of the problem, let's get rid of them. Same with the legislature, and same with the governor. Any elected official, doesn't matter who it is. This is not a partisan thing. I'd say the same thing about me being in office back when I was. If I wasn't doing a good job, vote me out. Yeah. And there's, and I think we need that kind of accountability. Our elected officials should not feel invincible, and that's one thing I don't like about redistricting. I think when you look at redistricting around the country, but here in Arkansas, they start gerrymandering. They're trying to make their own people invincible. Mm-hmm. And that's really bad for the system. Our system's not designed for that. I want people who are in office, I want them to work for my vote. And I want them to come back every 2 years and work for it, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I want. I think it works better that way. I think that accountability is good. I think that they don't get off on these ideological tangents. They actually represent communities and people, and they try to be responsive. And I think that's missing right now. Politics gel in the U.S.
Completely agree. I think with the presidents, we'll see that because they're having a special election. Yeah. But then she moved it, so we'll see how that goes.
That's odd too. Now, I don't want to criticize Sarah Sanders, but that is so long to have a vacancy. It's almost unprecedented. And I just don't like that. And again, I don't know all the things that we have to look, but I just feel like we deserve the right to be represented. And I think on these special elections, when you have a vacancy, you should really try to call them as quickly as you can. Within reason, and there's statutes on this, but anyway, I think it's good for the system that you have an election and you have some people that get out there and get elected and have a voice for their communities. But anyway, we'll stay and see how it's.
Absolutely. On a lighter note,
Yeah.
Who will be playing in the Super Bowl this year? And will Bad Bunny be bringing out Cardi B because you know they have that song together? So
I know. Let's talk about that. So I think Bad Bunny will have at least one other artist with. You know how they do. They kind of bring people in. I think Cardi B could be it. I mean, there's a lot of folks. He's buddies with a lot of those people. NFL, heck, they're probably running this, and they probably want certain demographics to be met and all that stuff. But my guess is he will have some people in there with him. The halftime has become such this huge extravaganza. It's just kind of taken a life of its own. But so anyway, that's the halftime. I think on the game itself, it's hard to know. I kind of sort of think the Detroit Lions might make it. I wouldn't call them a dark horse. I do think they're a good team. I think Green Bay's actually pretty good this year on the NFC side. I mean, there's a few good teams. I tell you, guys, super impressive the last few weeks is Tampa Bay. They've been really, really good the last few weeks. Then on the AFC side, is it going to be the Chiefs again? It's like it's always the Chiefs. And you know what? They're not going to rust off. They're probably going to be really good. They'll be in it all the way down the stretch. I don't know if they make it. I sort of feel like I do like Buffalo. I think right now the Colts have the best record.
Yeah.
It's early. I think they're 5-1, whatever the number is. But I'm going to go with the dark horse. Let's say the Colts.
Colts.
Yeah.
Against the Chiefs, maybe?
No, because they're both AFC. So
right,
it'd be the Colts and I guess what I'd predict, if you're going to ask me to predict, I'd say the Colts and the Lions is what I'd say.
Colts and the Lions.
That's
like
a weird
first
combo.
ever.
I'm not sure anybody else is picking that, but we'll see how it develops.
That's wild. Okay, well, who do you think's going to be Arkansas's next big thing? Besides me, of course. Who is someone we should look out for?
So we're taking you out of this?
Yeah, I'm out of this. Make it fair. Of course.
Okay, so on the political front, I do think that the state Democratic Party is really trying to recruit really bright, shining new faces, and I think that's good. And I think some of those will emerge. I think Clark Tucker clearly is a rock star right now, and I think that the state party is looking to build this core group of young leaders in the state that come from all over the state and that can kind of lead Arkansas into the next 20 or 30 years. And we were again talking about when I was a kid and kind of getting up in politics, going up through politics. I was fortunate to have my dad had Dale Bumpers and Bill Clinton, and those were the big three. But you know what? We also had people like Burl Anthony and Bill Alexander. Ray Thornton was amazing. John Paul Hammerschmidt. I mean, there was a group of people that really set the tone for the state. I mean, I served with a guy in the legislature named Jody Mahoney. And Jody was, when it came to education, there was Jody and Ed Dixon and a woman named Carolyn Holland. Carolyn was their revival. But they focused on education. They focused on nuts and bolts of government. And we used to tease Jody Mahoney from Alvarado. We used to tease him because he'd carry around this box. It was all the papers in his box. It was like this big box. He carried he didn't have a briefcase. He carried around this big cardboard box all session. It was just funny. But he'd ever hand there and find these bills he's working on. But the truth is, we need people like that who are really committed, who emerge. Out of the many people that are serving in various offices that emerge or just at the top. I would say Clark Tucker is certainly one of these right now. There's a few. And I would say Clark would be one. I do think on the Democratic side, the state Democratic Party is trying to build that. And I think we're going to see good candidates for lots and lots of positions around the state.
Awesome. Well, I agree. I think there are a lot of great people out there, and I'm super excited. That is all for our game.
Well,
and that is all for the podcast. So,
thank you.
Do you want to say anything to the audience before we go?
Yeah, I really don't. I appreciate you.
I really
tuning
do.
in. Arkansas is a special place, and we need to work hard to keep it special. We need to all work together and find the common ground and move forward and try to keep Arkansas progressing in the right direction. And we need to try to think about our future and think about the next generation and the generation after that, and things we can do today to really plant those seeds to really make life better for people down the road. So that's been our history, and let's keep at it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting and talking with me. This has been fun. I've learned a lot.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you're checking us out, like, comment, subscribe. Say like, comment, subscribe. No, you know. Okay. Thank you for watching. Y'all have a good day. Bye.